All right, so we have our outer door skin completely finished. We have the inner door skin reinstalled, and we are getting to install the speaker. And we are not gonna trip before the finish line. This is where we bring it all home. And there are some important steps that we have to take. You know, some people might think it's as simple as just taking the baffle, taking the speaker, and, you know, mounting them, wiring them, and finishing up. But that is actually not the case. We have some very important parts here that can be crucial. So there's 3 parts to this, and all of it involves gasketing, sealing, preventing air leaks, preventing air from going where we don't want it to. Part number 1 is on the back of the baffle where it resides on the inner door skin. So we want to prevent air from getting in between there. So we provide a gasket there using ResoNix CCF Decoupler 3F, which I have right here. I already cut it into 2 strips. The second strip is for the gasket for the speaker to the baffle, again to prevent air pressure to exit from in between a tiny little area. Both of these, if you do have air leaks, you will hear it as, it sounds like a blown speaker. I guarantee you someone watching this has experienced this, may or may not have realized it, but it's very important to make sure you get an airtight seal on your baffles, on your drivers to your baffles. Again, really important. I've ran into this many times in the past where I actually thought I had a blown driver or a bad driver right out of the box, but it turned out to be that it wasn't properly gasketed and it was just a little tiny air leak that sounded like, you know, a blown speaker. So first step, again, rear, you know, for sealing the baffle to the inner door skin. 1 on the bottom flange of the mid-bass driver to seal the baffle and mid-bass driver. And the third one is using ResoNix CCF Strips, which I actually do not have on me at the moment. I'm gonna go grab one in a second. But what that is going to do is we are gonna put that around the mid-bass driver. I left a little extra room on this baffle to accommodate for it. You may have to sometimes put it on the flange of the speaker itself. Sometimes you can make a little adapter plate. You know, there's many different ways you can go about installing this. But at the end of the day, its goal is to seal the front of the speaker and couple it to the grille on the door panel. That way, all of the air pressure, all the sound pressure that's coming off of the speaker is fully directed through the door panel's grille. As we know, speakers produce frequencies that are low relative to their diameter in omnidirectional radiation patterns, meaning at mid-bass frequencies, this 6-inch speaker is sending sound equally in every single direction. We want to make sure we don't have all of that sound energy that's sending off to the sides and diagonal. We don't want it going behind the door panel where it's going to cause more resonance, more rattles, more distortion, loss to volume output, you name it. We want to sort of funnel it right out of the door grill into the cabin, which is our listening environment. Super simple piece that many people just forget, and really, or they don't forget it, they just do it incorrectly, which is very hard to do, but people still manage to do it incorrectly. And we will go over all of the steps on how we do each one. So again, these first 2 are really simple. This first one, again, we're just gonna take a strip of ResoNix CCF Decoupler 3F, which is our firm 3mm closed cell foam. And we are just going to go completely around the back side of the baffle. And the reason for this, again, is to make sure we don't have any air leaks. These air leaks won't really cause any cancellation. It's not enough air pressure to cause any cancellation. But what it will do is it will present itself as audible distortion. It'll sound like a blown speaker, and it is kind of a weird phenomenon, to be honest. So, all right, we have this one done. I don't know if it's easy to see in this video. The lighting's a little weird right now, but I will show photos if you can't see it in the video. So yeah, it's just a ring of CCF Decoupler 3F that is going to provide, you know, a nice gasket on its mounting surface. The next we are going to do, I'm gonna put the speaker right on the foam so it doesn't really hurt the surround at all, which it shouldn't, but you know. And then we're gonna go around the back side of the speaker. And there's a couple things to note here. I personally like to mount this or adhere this directly to the bottom side of the flange on the speaker instead of directly on the baffle. It's gonna, at the end of the day, it is kind of personal preference, but I've just had an easier time making things, you know, cleaner, more correct, just doing it on the bottom of the baffle, or sorry, the flange for the speaker. And we don't want to do, there's one thing we don't want to do. I've seen a lot of people, you know, there's 8 mounting holes on this speaker. I've seen a lot of people just do little strips of it in between the mounting holes and then leave a little gap for the mounting holes so they don't, you know, get in the way of the screw, and just do little strips all the way around. That is making it worse. That would be worse than doing nothing at all, because all you're doing is elevating different points. You're elevating the driver, but creating little vents for air to escape from. Don't do that. Go all the way around. Whatever screws you use, whether it's, you know, basic wood screws or, you know, nice, you know, stainless steel machine screws like we're using, it doesn't matter. You can just poke a hole right through into whatever you're doing and everything will be fine. Do not leave gaps in this. You want to make sure this is totally sealed all the way around. Otherwise, you're defeating the purpose and then some. So yeah, I'm just gonna go all the way around, and it's gonna be pretty simple. One thing to note, you know, you're not gonna see any wiring on this speaker or on the door panel. That's because I didn't get to that yet. And I'm going to be taking care of that after this video is done. I'm, you know, it's not part of the sound deadening video that we are making, sorry. Yeah, so we just go all the way around, very careful, make it nice and clean, and when we come to the point where it meets, just do a nice careful rip, perfect, seal, all the way around. I don't know if you could see that, but you know, make sure we press it on nice and good, and then we can secure the speaker to the baffle. So I'm going to line up my mounting holes again. You know, I did go over them with foam, but once I line them up, I'll be able to just puncture through with the machine screws that I'm using. And it's really just that simple. Now, while I'm doing this, we might as well talk about baffle material or baffle securing or anything of that sort, because that will be a factor as well in, you know, resonance, vibration, stuff like that. I personally use a few different materials. I will use, can I find, oh, I'm off. All right, there we go. I will use a few different materials. In this vehicle, I am using acrylic. It's made out of 4 layers of 1/4-inch acrylic that I cemented together. They're all cut out on the laser to match the OEM mounting pattern and fit perfectly. Sometimes I'll use this. Sometimes I will use PVC or expanded PVC. Sometimes I will use HDPE as well. All of them have their pros and cons, but at the end of the day, all of them are strong materials that are rigid, they are strong, and they will not weather over time. You know, MDF and various woods will be problematic over time. My personal concern when I'm doing an install is making sure it's going to last. And then from there, you know, usually any material that's good is going to not only last a long time, but is also going to be rigid and solid and non-resonant. And yeah, you know, those are the materials I suggest. You can also use aluminum if you have the ability to do that. You can be crazy and have it milled out of steel, you know, that's also absolutely insane. But, you know, if you want to do it, I've done it before. I have had custom, you know, water jet baffles done before out of steel. But I only did that because I needed something that was very thin but still strong. But, oh, one more thing that maybe I'll go over while I'm installing the CCF strips, but I will touch on it now. You do want the baffle, or not the baffle, sorry, you do want the speaker to be as close to the door panel or the grille. You want it as close as possible. And the reason for that is you don't want to create a tunnel that the mid-bass frequencies have to travel through. The closer the driver is to the door panel, obviously without the cone or surround hitting it, the closer it is, the better of a job you can do sealing the driver to the grille opening with ResoNix CCF strips. And I did make CCF strips only 1 inch thick on purpose, and that is to make sure that, you know, we're kind of essentially making you get your driver as close as possible to the door panel, you know, no more than 1 inch away, to make sure you can do a good job. And for those of you, what I said before is I see a lot of people doing this wrong. I'll see people doing one of two things that they get wrong with this. One is mounting their speaker too far away. Another, actually, well, coupling off of that is when they mount it too far away, they will have their ring product around, but that ring product isn't, you know, tall enough to actually touch from the baffle or the speaker and actually couple to the door grill, creating a seal all the way around. It's just kind of a foam ring that exists, and then there's plenty of space in between the ring and the door panel. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of material. You prove to everybody that you have no idea what you're doing. Just don't do that. And problem number 2 is that people are using some products. I will not name any names, but some people are using products that are made out of a foam that is open cell foam. Open cell foam allows air to travel through it. And if you are using, you know, if the point of you even installing that is to, you know, seal the driver to the grill, how are you sealing anything if the foam is open cell? So if you see a product that's made out of open cell, looking at you, Fast Strings, don't use it, because it's not going to do anything at all, you know? So yeah, it blows my mind that these companies are like making these products and don't even know the basics behind it. It's not even, it is halfway sad on the consumers, or more so the professional installers part, but it's even more sad on the company's fault for even producing those. The product is a great idea, but you guys, the fact that you make it out of open cell foam is so ridiculously hilarious to me. It blows my mind. I'm just gonna trim the foam that's sticking out here. Yeah, so that's my rant for this part of the video. All right, we are installed. All right, I have my ResoNix CCF strip here. One thing, I just took a look. It looks like I didn't, you know, make the flange completely wide enough. It is wide enough to hold on to it, but it's only holding on to about maybe 2/3 of the strip. A little bit of it overhangs, and the reason for that is I measured the size of the door panel. I was like, all right, I can fit, you know, I actually remember the numbers. I was like, I can fit up to 190 millimeters. So I'm just gonna make it 185 millimeters wide, while the speaker outer diameter was, if I recall, like 165, 70 millimeters outer diameter. And I was like, all right, that'll be enough to mount this, but I'm not totally, I mean, I'm confident in it, but I just want to do better. So what I'm going to do to build up certain areas is just use some more CCF 3F to kind of give the baffle a little bit of extra width, to give this a little bit more stability, so that when the door panel is pressing on it, it doesn't kind of push over and roll over the edge and sort of fall off. It still would be making it a seal, but if it kind of rolls back a little bit, it's not going to be putting as much pressure on it, and we want it to put pressure on it for the sake of making a good seal and also helping to stabilize everything. So I am cutting a little bit of foam and just adding some, you know, some extra girth to it, as they say. And while I know I said, you know, the panel's getting a little close, adding foam around it isn't really going to be too much of a problem, because the door panel slowly starts to cave in, and as it does, you know, the foam will just compress. I didn't want to make acrylic, which is not going to, you know, listen to what a door panel wants it to do. So I'm comfortable adding a little bit of extra girth to this. With just some foam, I know it'll compress and form to shape without any problems. All right, all done. I don't know if you could see, but this looks good. It actually looks good, which is pretty neat. It's always a plus. So let's see. Yeah, now I have full ability to, you know, have some stability to it all the way throughout its entire width. All right, let's get this on the car and let's get this installed. All right, so we have our speaker secured to the baffle. Both the speaker's underside of the flange as well as the bottom of the baffle are both treated with ResoNix CCF 3F to prevent air leaks. They act as a gasket. Now that we have these ready, we are going to install the entire assembly back onto the inner door skin. Again, I made a baffle that is utilizing the OEM hardware, so I don't have to do anything crazy. So yeah, once we do that, after that, we're going to install the ResoNix CCF Strip, which is going to go around as mentioned before. And once that is done, we're ready to install our door panel. I'm not going to install the door panel because I still have to do some wiring in here, but that is unimportant for this video. So yeah, let's get this installed and we're going to wrap it up. So let me get this a little bit closer for you guys, so you could see what is really going on here. And I'm not going to go crazy tightening down each screw this first go, because the thickness of the gasket, if I tighten one of them down all the way, having these tight tolerances with these, you know, OEM mounting points, it will create an uneven surface and things won't really mount properly. So I'm only tightening things down just a little bit, and then I'll tighten them up little by little. Okay. All right, now I can start tightening these down. All right, that is it for mounting the baffle. Now we are going to do our ResoNix strip. So let me try to get into a comfortable position here. Actually, that looks like it is not going to be possible. So let me move this a little bit closer so I can be a little closer. So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna peel a little bit, and then I'm just going to start working my way around. I'm just gonna place it here, feel a little bit and work my way around. And you don't want to stretch it, and because if you stretch it, it'll cause it to want to pull inwards, which is obviously not good. You don't want it to be hitting your surround or anything of that sort. So you want to leave it, you know, let it lie as it lies. Don't stretch it, and just go around and be careful. Once you go all the way around, you don't need to be crazy on pressure yet, because once you go around and everything's mounted, then we'll be able to do that. Actually, I forgot a scissor. Let me grab one. So once we have it where we need it to go, we can estimate where it needs to be trimmed, trim it, and get it in there nice and snug. And now we can go around and just get it nice and tight on there. Make sure it's adhered. And that is it. We are done. All right, so now that we have our outer door skin done, we have our door panel done, we have the mid-base, baffle, and driver mounted and treated with ResoNix CCF strips, and a wide array of other products to make sure the rest of the door is solid and not going to be a problem. Last up is the inner door skin. And as mentioned earlier, this vehicle has essentially one giant solid access panel, which negates the need to really sound treat the inner door skin. And the reason for that is the shapes of these are way too complex. And on top of that, they're also pretty solid out of the gate, and they're assembled in a way that doesn't promote resonance or rattles or buzzes or anything like that. So in 99% of applications, it can be completely ignored and left alone as long as we properly treat our door panel and outer skin and properly handle the mid-base mounting. We are good to go. But I do want to talk to you about potential issues with inner door skins. Most vehicles have inner door skins that aren't like this, where they will have an access hole or two, and those will be covered with one giant sheet of plastic, like very thin, flimsy sheet of plastic that is a vapor barrier. And I want to discuss how you should handle those inner door skins. As usual, the first step is going to be treating any little areas that are overlapping or that could buzz and rattle against each other with ResoNix Butyl Rope. You can also treat wire harnesses with our OEM interior tape or even our CCF 3S. Moving on from there is getting to the actual inner door skin itself. You can use our ResoNix CLD squares or even our Supermax Mega Pro CLD squares to treat the metal of the inner door skin. Once that's done, that's going to be the easy part. You don't need to go crazy. I see a lot of people going crazy on inner door skins, but the truth is usually inner door skins are the strongest part of the door. They have the most curvature, most bends, most three-dimensional shapes, which promotes strength, which is going to allow them to be not very resonant. So a lot of times you really don't need to go crazy with inner door skins. You really want to focus on outer door skins and door panels, but you're not just going to leave the inner door skin be if it can be treated. So again, start off with ResoNix CLD squares or Supermax Mega Pro CLD squares. Start with the CLD. And then from there, you're going to want to focus your efforts on the access holes themselves. And what you want to do is seal them up to prevent the rear wave of the mid-bass driver from escaping and interacting with the front wave of the mid-bass driver, which would cause cancellations. How you're going to do this is with block-off plates. This is referring to a piece of plastic or metal or whatever that you use to block off that access hole. Most people use ABS plastic or HDPE or PVC. There's many different things you can do, or even like sheet metal. But regardless, whatever material you choose, you want it to be strong, rigid. You want it to be non-corroding. Wood is a bad idea. Using regular steel is a bad idea. I would suggest ABS. 3/8 of an inch thick ABS. You don't really want to go, or not 3/8, sorry, maybe like 1/4 inch. You don't really want to go down to 1/8 inch. It might be too flimsy, but if you have to, so be it. But regardless, you want to make sure you treat these block off plates with constrained layer damper products as well. Now, what you don't want to do is when you secure these block off plates, you don't want to do a constrained layer damper over the entire thing onto the inner door skin. You want to leave them serviceable. So only treat the inner door skin, treat the block off plate, and then install the block off plate onto the inner door skin. And how you can install it onto the inner door skin is pretty simple. You can use either, if you really want to be that guy, you can use self-tapping screws and just screw it to the door. Personally, I do not do that. What I do is I use riv nuts and machine screws. If you don't know what those are, I suggest looking them up. They will make your life a lot easier in these situations. And it's a lot cleaner to mount things like this. Or if you come into the rare situation like I've been in, where you have a client that has a very expensive or very rare vehicle, and they say absolutely no drilling or cutting whatsoever, but they still want a sound system, what I will do is I will take butyl rope, ResoNix Butyl Rope, and I will put it around the perimeter on the back side of the access panel, and I'll use it to adhere the access panel the block off plate to the inner door skin. And it sort of creates, a nice mounted piece that isn't permanently modifying the vehicle. The downside to this is that the adhesive properties of the ResoNix Butyl Rope it's very strong. So getting it off can be a little problematic, but not the end of the world. I would only suggest that if you're in certain situations like that. But then we come into the situations where we have an inner door skin with access holes that have a three-dimensional shape to them, where it's not just a hole with a flat surface, it's a hole with a curved surface, and it curves in, out or in or whatever. Usually it's going to be curved in because it has to accommodate curvatures of the door panel. This can be a problem for those who want to use things like ABS or HDPE or any material that's not really going to flex. Yeah, you can heat mold, you can heat them up and kind of bend them and shape them, but take it from me, it is such a pain in the ass to do that and takes forever, and it's just daunting. It's not fun. Yes, it's cheaper to do this in the long run, but at the end of the day, I personally value my time more than anything. And what I do in these situations, like I said, when I have either a curved inner door skin or an access hole that a door panel sinks into, what I use is ResoNix Barrier. ResoNix Barrier is our noise barrier product that is made out of 3 layers. The outside layers are our ResoNix CCF 3S, but the center layer is 1/32 of an inch, 2 pound per square foot sheet lead. And this is very strong, it's very dense, it is perfectly rigid for a block off plate, but you can very easily form it to shapes. That's the point of the product in the first place, is it's very heavy, but it's very thin, and it's easy to work with, but it's thankfully still rigid enough in normal situations where you can just shape it, mount it to the door and move on. I've been in situations where we've done vehicles that would normally take maybe 2 or 3 hours to make molded ABS block off plates, but take 15 minutes to do with ResoNix Barrier. So it's a cost versus time analysis that you have to figure out for yourself, if it's worth it to just splurge on something like ResoNix Barrier, but to make your life a whole lot easier and make the installation a whole lot quicker. We've had plenty of DIY hobbyist customers who have ended up going that route and have sworn up and down that they will never not go that route ever again, just because of how simple and easy it was. So yeah, once you do that, like I said, CLD, make your block off plates, mount them, make sure they're nice and rigid. And by the way, you're not going to apply CLD to ResoNix Barrier if you use that as a block off plate, because it has you know, foam on it, and the CLD is not going to mount to foam. So you don't need to do that. It's also very non-resonant because lead is it's very dead. So you don't need to treat that. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the inner skin. Some people will apply CCF to it, like our CCF Decoupler 7. But most of the time, since you have treated the door panel, you don't really need to do that. But if you want to, you absolutely can. And that pretty much concludes what you would be doing or should be doing if you have a traditional inner door skin. And again, sorry that I can't show you. I just don't have one at my disposal right now. So moving on, we are going to install the door panel and wrap this bad boy up. All right, we have our door panel here and ready to be installed. As mentioned before, I still need to do wiring in here, so I'm not gonna, you know, fully put this back together. But yeah, I'm just gonna show you a quick little thing that I want you to keep note of. As you're installing the door panel, I want you to make sure that the ResoNix CCF strip actually makes contact with the door panel or grille all the way around its perimeter to make sure it's actually sealing the mid-bass driver to the grille. So I have to put a fair bit of pressure here. And there we go. And all I have to do from here is install the 3 different screws, put on the trim panels, and we are pretty good. One thing that you will see is, you know, I don't have the window switches installed. And this actually can be a part that rattles and buzzes a lot. You'll see, I don't know if you can see on video, there's a lot of like open little spaces in here, and it's just a lot of plastic, you know, touching itself. First-hand experience from this car, it's usually really not a problem, but in some vehicles it is a problem. You can use ResoNix Butyl Rope inside of these, you know, these little areas. You don't want to get too crazy with it because you don't want to gum these all up and get it nasty, or damage any of your buttons or switches or whatever. But you can use that to prevent them from buzzing against each other. You can also use ResoNix CCF 3F or anything of that sort to make sure, you know, panels like this or panels like this are decoupled. You know, like right here is a perfect example. There's like a plastic ring around the door handle that will sort of be pretty close to the trim panel that covers this. And what I could do is, you know, I can put a very thin strip of ResoNix CCF 3S either around this, or I would probably do it around the trim on that's going to be secured to this, just in case I can't really line this up perfectly. We don't have it like showing through. But, you know, as you're assembling the door panel back together, you want to make sure any of the small pieces like trim panels and, you know, switch panels and stuff like that aren't going to have any rattles and buzzes either, because those are going to be, honestly, after all of this treatment, that's all that's left to rattle. And trust me, when everything else is silent and those are left buzzing, you're going to hear it. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Thank you for watching if you managed to make it all the way through, and best of luck with sound deadening your doors and the rest of your car. If you have any questions or comments or anything of that, feel free to reach out anytime. Email, phone call, comments below, you name it, I'll answer. Have a good one.